Thank you so much for being here again on Thursday evening. It's absolutely wonderful to be doing this together. And essentially today we're talking about exiting, but we're not really. We're talking about presence always, because were we present at all times? Were we experiencing ourselves as presence, which is even more than being present, because being present lends itself to presence, because mindfulness is about absolutely being with what you're doing at the time. So you are completely absorbed in whatever activity it is you're doing. So whether that be cleaning your teeth or chopping vegetables for supper, whether you're driving your car, whether you're doing anything, you are 100% mindful and present in your activity. Now that's still an activity. It's still us being, mindful. Our mind is being focused on one thing, the thing we're doing, and that lends itself and leads to presence. It leads us to experience our essence. It leads us to move away from the past worries or regrets, even if it's of the morning where things didn't go to plan, or worrying about too much to do in the future. So at the core of what I'm talking about today, which is about the exits we make throughout our day, and obviously the exit is from our presence with another, but also it's exits from ourselves, because were we never ever not present and within ourselves, were we always experiencing now, were we always committed to, well, we might be committed, but were we always in that space, we couldn't possibly exit from another human. It would be impossible, because there is a totality in that presence where there is an all-encompassing expansiveness. That means we don't have to divide ourselves up, because we experience the oneness, we experience the presence. So even if we're in a room full of people, even if we're travelling down the street and there's crowds of people around us, even if we're on a tube, there is a presence that we're not going to withdraw or exit from anything or anybody. That doesn't mean, as I say, that we need to spend time with everybody, and vibrationally we have different people who'll be more resonant with us, but there isn't a shutting off, because we're whole. So one of the ways I was reflecting that one of the ways to stay present is also to notice when we exit. So in the same way, when we are reactive to a person in front of us, we've closed our heart. So it's more recognizing when we've done that thing, that we need to come back. So if we've closed our heart, we need to keep it open and clear the reactivity. So how do we exit from one another? And that is the thing. If we notice we've done an exit, and of course the things I'm going to talk about, they're not necessarily exits, only we know if we're withdrawing, exiting. That's what, for us to be aware that we have gone away from presence, we've gone away from the present, we've gone away from being where we are and experiencing the truth of who we are and that moment. So obviously we exist in relationship, we exist in the mirror of relationship with everybody else, and we particularly exist in the mirror of our close relationships, our intimacies. But our intimacies don't have to be just our partners or our people we feel very close to. They can be our colleagues, the people we spend a lot of time with. So one of the ways we exit is not making eye contact. So I've noticed it often where somebody's just gone. There are people who, the moment you start talking, I've noticed this with people where they'll talk and you'll be there listening to them, and listening, and then you might have something to offer, like a story. And I've noticed that sometimes the person's gone, and the moment you start talking about yourself perhaps, they've gone. Now of course that's in the mirror watching someone else doing it, but then it's being really super aware of whether you ever do it. Do you ever be in a conversation with somebody and then feel a bit, you can't remember what they've said, or feel a bit bored, or feel like you've got something to say and you want to stop so that you can say it? Then you've gone, you've exited. And it's those small things, they're so powerful, and at an energetic level you've dropped the person. So and you've dropped yourself, because obviously the loss of staying present, the loss of presence, means that you've not, you're not here now. But that one's a really key one to notice in dialogue. Do you exit in dialogue at all? Do you find that you can't remember what they've said? Do you find that you're not looking at the person? I mean, it's different to accessing some information, as we all do. We look up, neuro-linguistic programming has done a lot of work on, we look up to different sides to access different memories and different aspects when we're talking, just scanning, the kind of the files in our brain. But that's different to not engaging. So that is one of the very, very important things. Do you stop, making eye contact? Do you stop being present? Do you stop? Now, of course, we can still be chatting to somebody if we're in the same room, and we might be doing different things. But again, do we exit by breaking off listening? That's an exit. If you stop listening to somebody, it's an exit. Do you, there's so many exits that they don't have to be exits, but they often are. The phone's a huge one now. We didn't really used to have the phone as an exit, but people's mobile phones are massive exits, where there's not enough awareness of how much it is, I don't think. I think it's a wonderful thing, and it's an irony, because the phone's a place that we can stay connected with one another, and we can respond and be engaged together and share things. But it's also, if we're in the same room as somebody and that everybody's on their phone, I think that can be an exit. Now, it doesn't have to be, because in relationship we can get kind of, our own, what would it be called? Rules is a funny word, but it is kind of rules of the phone, where you might say, we don't look at our phones unless we've agreed that we're either catching up with the people on our phone or catching up with whatever we might. And both people say, okay, we'll just have a phone time, we'll check our phones and then we'll put them away. Or we might have them, Nadi's business is such that he has different time zones all the time. So he keeps his phone in his pocket on vibrate. And if it vibrates a lot, he'll say to me, do you mind if I just check my phone? Because it often indicates there's some problem in South Africa or Australia, so which he might need to attend to. But again, he never exits, because it is a conversation with me. So again, all of this brings us back to, if we're in our centre, if we're completely present, then we're always going to be mindful to stay in dialogue with the people we're with, whether they're our friends or our family. And again, of course, if we all live in a home together, or we're on a holiday together, or whatever we might be, people can be doing different things. So people can be sitting about reading, maybe looking at their phone, maybe watching something, whatever. But it's only you who know whether you're exiting from the place, because all these things can be exits. Reading can be an exit, watching television can be an exit, going and doing sport and exercise can be an exit, or they can just be healthy things that you enjoy doing. Now, they can be an exit from yourself as well as another. So television can be, or any watching a screen can be a really nice relaxing thing to do, where you enjoy a different experience, you enjoy the whole art of it, the creativity, whatever it might be that you're enjoying. Or it can be escape, and it can be an exit. So it can be an exit from yourself, and it can be just a brain numbing, and then the brain still being stimulated by whatever's coming in, but it's just a kind of ugh. And that is an exit from yourself. And if you're doing that, you know, living in the same space as somebody, often that's an exit from them too. And as I say, all of this, we come back to the commitment to presence, the commitment to awareness being at the hub of it all, because sometimes people do these behaviours and they wouldn't know that they're exiting from themselves or another. It becomes the norm. So it comes back to being very, very aware, and being aware that there's so much more energy if we are able to drop into that space and be consciously constantly conscious and consciously conscious. And sometimes people have said to me, oh, I can't do that 24/7. Oh, it's exhausting. But actually, it only takes practice, like anything. And it's actually more exhausting to be exited, because you're away from yourself and you're away from the other. And of course, we nurture each other if we're connected. Obviously, dialogue, not speaking, not engaging, stonewalling, because again, it doesn't mean we have to talk all the time when we're with somebody, but it is important that we communicate what's going on. You know, I'd like to have a little bit of time to unwind from my day. I'd like to just sit quietly for a little while. I love you. I love being with you. You know, I will be available to have a good old chat in 20 minutes. And that communication means it isn't an exit. So I'm not saying everybody has to be constantly talking, but with presence, we don't exit. And we're very aware. And that might feel exhausting at first, because, you know, people haven't practiced it. It's like one of my clients was talking about it, and he said, I get it. It's all biceps for the brain, because biceps curls for the brain, because he's a fitnessy person. And I said, yeah, that's exactly it. It's biceps curls for the brain, to be aware, because what other ways do people exit? Well, actually, the gym, going to the pub, alcohol, overeating, and yet we can eat. Obviously, eating's a very lovely thing to do together on our own. So is drinking. Alcohol can be a lovely, enjoyable thing. And again, only we know if we're trying to wash things away, trying to escape, trying to somehow not engage with the other, how only we know if the relationship with a substance, because drugs, of course, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, eating abuse, all of that is an exit, because the relationship and it's an exit from ourselves, because the relationship becomes with the substance rather than the person in front of us. But more importantly, the relationship with ourselves is being damaged, because we're more engaged with the substance, and it can take us way away, and that's an exit from our truth, from who we are. And it can often, as we know, take a long time to come back. Addiction is a big exit. It's addiction is a severing of our connection to ourselves, and we're trying to find that connection outside ourselves. But ironically, it exits us not only from ourselves, we've lost ourselves, but we can lose all our family, friends, everybody if we're in that space. We are how we are with money, not there's an exit if there's, I don't know whether you've experienced this, but there's been people who you notice that they're the ones that don't pay necessarily. If there's a group thing, they don't put the hand in their pocket, and that's an exit. How we are engaged in a group, how we are, what we're doing, it's all being mindful all the time that how we are with others is a reflection of how we are with ourselves, and that it will impact on us. And if we are not mindful and present, then ultimately we're kind of off our center point, and then we're slightly going off, even if we're only a tiny bit out of connection with ourselves. Once we're a tiny bit out, we go off, off, you know, off we go. Of course, a big one that people exit with is work. Now, it doesn't have to be an exit. I think Anali and I work every God sense. As far as I can gather, I think we have met the mirror in each other of enjoying work. But I never feel that Nadi's work is an exit. I know he loves it, and I know that if I go away, he works even more. And I love work, but neither of us exit from each other with our work. And I don't feel that I exit from myself with it at all. In fact, it brings me nearer and nearer me, because obviously my work's relational, and I'm working in relationship with all of you and others. And I have now, again, people can exit nowadays with all of this communication kind of tools. Ironically, people can exit by not replying. Now, again, it doesn't mean if you don't reply immediately you've exited. Only you know, because there are different rhythms. So I have a personal commitment that I will say to all of you, all my clients, that I will always answer you on the day that I receive an email or a text from you. I will always answer in the day, and that's something that I've made a commitment to, and therefore you will know if I don't reply, I haven't received your message. And that's just my commitment, and I know that I never exit from that, and I'm totally committed to that, and I don't find that difficult. And I don't find it difficult because I'm at ease. So if I open my phone and there's a long line of messages, I don't feel any sense of it being a lot or anything, because that in itself can be an exit. When people see messages in their inbox and they exit energetically because they're overwhelmed. Now, people are often overwhelmed, again, because they're not present, or they aren't, or there's the management of it, of how we manage these things. So that doesn't mean that people who aren't answering on the day are exiting, by the way, because there are different rhythms of how we respond to things, and different ways of communicating and getting back to people. And it's only partly, my work is very much about people's journey, and therefore if they've contacted me, it's going to be about something that's going on. So it's a different kind of arena. But you will know if you're exiting. You will know if you get a message and you can't deal with it, or you find it's all too much, and therefore you'll know if you decide to exit from something that feels difficult, or you don't know the answer to, or you don't want to commit. I've done a lot of work with people who don't answer because they don't know the answer, so therefore they don't want to say something, so they just don't answer. And of course that's an exit, because the person's left, they've dropped the person. And as we start to recognize these patterns and tendencies in us, we can gently start to, again, come back to our center point, always come back to presence. Now, again, I remember working with somebody many years ago, God, 30 years ago, and he was overwhelmed with emails, and he was getting something like 500 a day. And it was, making him ill, because it was making him ill. And it brought him to me. And actually what we did was saw that there were absolutely masses of those emails that didn't need answering, because they were promotion things or advertising things. But it was the volume that overwhelmed him and made him exit both from the computer and himself. So it isn't just about answering everything. It's about being present with yourself enough to know what's going on, because we come back, and I'll always come back to this, that the core center point of relationship, of staying present with people, is about being so aware and so mindful and so present, and being able to be intentional in your dialogue, that there aren't any shocks, because obviously we build up into bigger exits where people, start having affairs, or they, start spending more time in the pub or with their friends, and that there's an obviously bigger exit, and lots of secrecy starts to happen. So then there's lots of covert stuff going on, and then it can get to bigger stuff where people, ask for a divorce, or they leave, or there's huge exits, people commit suicide, or there's a huge amount of murders in intimate relationships. I think loads in America. I mean, I'm not going to quote a number, because I realise that this is this is going out and people will say, no, this isn't that. But there's a lot of exits in dramatic ways. Now, these huge exits, if we're intentional, I know it sounds really simple, but if we stay present all the time, the space between us all is never a shock. And so whether that's wanting to exit, or wanting to actually, leave a relationship, or leave a job, or leave a friendship even, there can be a very gentle way of these things being done by, staying present with yourself. And I'm not going to say any set ways with anything, because there are different ways of things coming to an end. And that's very different to an exit, because there are endings in, whether in a job, whether in a friendship, whether in a relationship with somebody. And I'm not going to say there's a set way, because there isn't, because sometimes relationships, friendships come to a kind of change. I'd always say it's more a change of form, and there hasn't been an exit. There's been you've stayed present with yourself, but what's happened is there hasn't been the same meetings up, there hasn't been the same, connection going on, the things change, and then there's nothing dramatic happens, and sometimes those relationships then pick up again later on. There'll be something else happen. So again, if we're present, if we're back in presence, then we never exit. Things may change. Obviously, if we're in a marriage, or a living together with somebody, or a job, there needs to be a dialogue. Of course, don't generally wake up one day, oh, that's strange, that relationship's, it's not there. Now, having said that, drifting happens in relationships, but that's often an exit thing going on, rather than a presence. I hope I'm not muddling you with that, but it's very subtle. And that's why I'd always say, come back to your center at all times, so you will know when you're not there. You will know when you're got a feeling of, I'm trying to exit here, I'm trying to get out, rather than being present and knowing that something needs to change, maybe needs to change form, maybe a job needs to change, you need to move to another job, another house, maybe a relationship needs to end. That's different to exiting. Exiting, with in the big way. As I say, I did mention divorce as an exit. Well, it is, but it can be done. It can be done with presence. It can be done consciously. It can be done with, without exiting. It unfortunately often isn't. Unfortunately, there's often a lot of lack of presence and consciousness there. But I believe, and I've seen it, I've worked with people. So in summary then, it's about our connection to ourself again. It's about knowing that it's more simple than people make it. So we could talk about the things we've got to change. People exit by the tone of voice they have often, but we could list all the ways that people exit and go, right, let's not do that. But the thing is, if somebody isn't aware and isn't conscious, these things are often just happening. They're just doing these things without knowing it. They don't even know that by going, they're trying to get away by going, running loads, or staying at the pub, or putting the television on the moment they come in, or putting in their earphones so that they can listen to a podcast rather than talk. Now, as I say, all of these things don't have to be exits. It's only we know whether we're cutting off connection, number one, with ourselves, and then inevitably if we're not centered, at ease, relaxed, present, how can we be present with another if we're not wholly present with ourselves? So it comes back to the commitment to notice your tension, notice your narratives, your discomforts, your lack of ease in yourself. Start to notice those. Often, obviously, coming and talking with a person like myself means that you can unravel patterns and programs, and all of this will bring you back more to your center point and presence with yourself, and then in all of your relationships with your close people, but also just buying a coffee, buying the newspaper with the person you pay the bus thing to, or you don't pay in London, you tap. Do you do that everywhere else? I think we do. We tap a lot now, don't we? And it's such fun then staying connected and present with yourself and with others. And of course, as I was saying in the session on Monday when we were doing the chant meditation, and how sound can help our bodies, can help cleanse our energy field and help us vibrate at a much higher level. Actually, we make a difference when we are vibrating and shining our light brightly. We make a difference to everybody we meet, and of course presence comes with that. So thank you for listening as always, and thank you for being there, and it's been a joy.